The reports that we get from the school says that it has not yet improved. The involvement of the parents has not yet improved.
Okay,
That's just one aspect. But we've got also these challenges of a pool, not necessarily the secondary level, a pool of unqualified and underqualified teachers at the primary level. So if your foundational level is not solid, then you cannot expect miracles to perform at the secondary level. But thanks God that all these issues, we have identified them, we are addressing them. For example, we have a tailor-made design diploma program that we have created together with UNAM, through which we are training the unqualified and underqualified teachers so that we can fix the problem there. You cannot fix the grade 10 problem at the secondary level because it follows through from the primary level where the learners needs to get a solid educational foundation. And that's why we are training the teachers at the primary level so that when the children are passing through the primary phase and coming at the secondary, those learners are so well groomed and well molded that they would be able to even endure without a teacher.
Right.
That's the type of environment we are trying to create.
Okay, I understand. But now, so my question specifically speaks to how the performance of the students can be credited to the ministry specifically. So then you did mention about the parenting, and then we spoke about how the feedback you've gotten is that parents aren't as active, which means that strategy hasn't been working.
Well, we cannot say it has not worked. It's perhaps it will not work overnight. It will not work overnight. Part of the education. So to educate parents to have a better understanding of why they must be involved, it's not something that you tell them once and you stop. It's a continuous exercise until the society is educated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you mentioned was with teachers who aren't with teachers who aren't qualified, but that falls unqualified. But the hiring of public school teachers falls under your jurisdiction, does it not? So then what is the ministry doing to ensure that the quality of the teachers is upheld? Because that is directly a responsibility of your ministry.
I've exactly told you now what the ministry has done to improve on the quality of the teachers. Because of the circumstances that we have got, we end up employing sometimes and underqualified teachers.
But why is
that? Because of the shortage of teachers that we are having. We don't have a sufficient pool of qualified teachers that we can employ, especially at the primary levels.
Okay.
And that's because, meaning simply the demand and the supply does not match. We don't have qualified pre-primary teachers sufficiently qualifying from the universities. So that creates a shortfall. We end up, and of the demand, the children enrollment numbers that are increasing annually.
Yeah.
It with the free education, it increased annually.
Okay.
So you have graduated, for example, a pool of 200 teachers. And the children that are enrolled surpasses the number of teachers that you are having.
Okay.
So you end up with unqualified and underqualified because you cannot also let the children sit alone in the classroom. There must be somebody.
Okay, so then what is the ministry doing to ensure that, who is the ministry working with to ensure that now the graduates from university,
the ministry worked with UNAM and is constantly working with UNAM to see how best we can even improve on the quota. And that's where my call was coming from, that the quota that the UNAM is giving for people that are studying education is not sufficient. That's why we need teacher colleges dedicated specifically for educating teachers and having a sufficient quota that would be qualifying and that would be graduating.
So is the ministry then working on establishing those teacher quotas?
Well, we are talking about that. I spoke about that in Parliament because the Parliament is where it has to be changed.
Okay.
So it's important that we understand that we need dedicated institutions that can train teachers so that we can have a sufficient pool of teachers, especially now that we have got the free education system where learner numbers are increasing annually. We need, the more the number of learners come in, we need more teachers. So the supply and demand is not matching because of that. I hope you understand.
I do understand. Okay, so those are two strategies that you mentioned, and both of those strategies you've mentioned that they're not necessarily
On the
contributing
results,
towards.
Let me
towards
add
the
also.
results, yeah.
Let me add also. You know, the examining is a very rigorous and cumbersome process. It's not just children write and script has been marked and it ends there. There is a lot of activities that goes into. She's the director of examinations and assessments. So she would in detail tell you what is examining and assessment, what it means and how it happens for the people to understand. People don't understand.
Yeah.
What is happening is that the results of learners are being analyzed. But this year alone, my director of exams and assessment did not end with the analysis and the assessment of how the results look like. They even went back on their own and to look into the individual scripts to check what is the issue, why children are performing the way some, let me say, because it's not that we have got a zero pass rate. We have got more than 50% pass rate. So it's not a zero pass rate that we can cry and behave as if nobody has passed. There are more than 50% learners that has passed. So they are analyzing the results. And they go into checking the gray areas where the weaknesses are. And I made mention in my speech, one of the weaknesses is the quality of the answers of children, you know, in the scripts. It's not at the required standard. And when a child is unable to answer a questionnaire standard at the standard level, it tells you, you trace it back to the classroom. You trace it back to the teacher who is responsible for that child in that classroom.
And then you trace the teacher back to?
You trace the teacher back to the institution where the teacher is coming from. Yeah. And we are also annually having examinaries of those who are marking the scripts of the children. At the end of the marking session, they come together and they are drawing up a thick document that is called the examiner's report. The examiner's report clearly shows the reasons why children are not passing and where are the weaknesses in the responses on the scripts of children. So basically what we are doing is that we are also using the examiner's report and it is being sent to each of the regions. So that every year at the regional directorates, it is expected that the regions are studying with those relevant grades. The examiner's report and the teachers themselves learn from, because each region has, it's not just a lump thing. The examiner's report is a specific report to a specific region. So if it's Hartab, for example, the Hartab examiner's report clearly shows which areas the Hartab children has been performing poorly.
Okay.
And that must be a very useful tool if we are using it at the regional levels, at the school levels.
But are they using it? Because it's
some schools do.
But
Some schools do.
But what happens to the schools that don't? Because wouldn't the goal then be all institutions within those particular regions make use of that to refine the methods that they use?
What do you want me to do if they are not complying to the instructions? What do you want me to do? If you were the minister, what would you do?
I don't know. Consult someone then to help you
do?
enforce it.
What would you do? You may have an answer because you have got a question. So when you have a
No,
question, you must have
I
answers.
do not have the answers. That's why I ask.
But what would you do? If people are not complying, you would beat them up, you would lock them up in prisons. What would you do?
I don't know because it's not in my jurisdiction.
If grown-up people are not complying, what do you do?
But that's the thing. That's
Professionals, trained, qualified. And if people that are under their mandate are not complying, it's upon them to follow the disciplinary measures that needs to be followed. It's an issue of discipline I was talking about.
all right.